What's up, everybody? Today I want to do a quick video here and go over a LeetCode problem in Rust. Now this problem is pretty simple from here. It's one of the more easy ones in LeetCode. However, I feel like when you do these problems here, it definitely helps you out learning the programming language, especially if you're new. It helps you out teaching the syntax, how to deal with variables, especially with mid to low level programming languages. Doing simple things like this aren't always simple, right? Sometimes you run into errors, different things, so it's good practice, right? With stuff like JavaScript and Python, those high-level programming languages, this should be pretty trivial. In Rust, this should be pretty easy too. However, there's going to be a few different ways, a few different things here that we're going to go over, and we're going to do basically 4 different solutions. And they're not going to be really different solutions, but we're going to do one solution, and then we're going to simplify the code, make it less verbose, and then so forth and so forth. So the problem here, we're given a temperature in Celsius that is of type float64. And then we're going to return that as an array here. In the case of Rust, we're actually going to return it as a vector. If you're not familiar with vectors, vectors are resizable arrays. So, you know, we're using a loose definition of this, but it should still work. Actually, it will still work because I did this off camera. As you can see, it was accepted. But anyways, so given a Celsius, we need to return a Kelvin and a Fahrenheit. And the only constraint is that it's a positive number here. So we're not dealing with any negative numbers, anything below 0. Sometimes in software, you know, like of course, you guys know that there's probably a temperature. It's probably quite often that it dips below or into the negatives in Celsius, depending on where you're at. However, sometimes the problems that you're given is, you know, just by the higher ups, this is what you're given, and you just kind of have to do it and say, okay, like, you know, let's pretend that maybe we're dealing with, I don't know, maybe some type of probe in a desert or maybe something like that. And we want to save space because that's a real thing when you're dealing with like signed numbers and unsigned numbers and stuff like that. But anyways, I'm rambling a little bit here. So the code so far, what they give us, we have public function convert temperature is the name of the function. The argument we're given is of Celsius of type float64. And then we're going to return that vector of float64s. All right, so first things first here, I want to declare 2 different variables here. So I'm going to say let K for Kelvin and let F for Fahrenheit. Now the format, they give it to us so we don't have to Google it. This is going to be equal to Celsius, which we take in as an argument, plus 273.15, and then semicolon. Now, if we want, we can also specify the type of this variable. So it's going to be a float 64, and then we can do the same thing down here. Float 64 equals, and then for Fahrenheit, it's Celsius times 1.8 plus 32. So now we have 2 values from here. So now we want to make a vector here. So we're going to say let mut, the keyword mut, which stands for immutable. Remember, every variable by default is immutable in Rust here. So if we want to change it, we have to add the keyword mut. We're going to call it result. And we're going to say this is type vector of float64. And this is going to be equal to a vector, a new vector. So 2 colons there, new, if I can type, and then a semicolon from there. Now we're going to say result.push K, and then result.push F. So we're pushing both of these values into that vector, and then finally we're going to return the vector back with no semicolon. And let's go ahead and run this from here. Cool, so it looks like that this is a correct solution from here. But if you look at this code, and if you've seen other Rust code before, this might seem a little verbose here. So this is like the first solution here. Let's go ahead and make this a little less verbose. So let's go ahead and condense this code down a little bit here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to utilize a macro here. So I'm going to remove most of this here. And I'm going to say let mut result equals lowercase vector with a exclamation point and then 2 brackets from there. So it's almost the same, but a little less wordy from there. Let's go ahead and run this again, and let's see if it works now. Cool. So now this is another way that you could make a vector, a little less wordy, but still not the best here. So let's make this even more, or even less verbose, even more efficient. So instead of putting these 2 on separate lines here, I can actually remove these 2 lines here, and I can do this at the same time, right? K and then F. Whoops. K, K, comma, F from there. And let's go ahead and run this again. And it's still working from here. So we just reduced the code by a lot, and it's still working, right? So we just reduced this code by a considerable amount. We got rid of some lines of code there, and we made the code a little more efficient. Now what we can do is we can even make this even more efficient if we remove this final line of code here, and we just return this right away. So we're going to say return result, just like that. Run. And we did something wrong there. I'm sorry. Let's go ahead and remove this from here. And go ahead and run this again. So we don't have to get that variable name. We can just say return and then say a vector k and then f from there. And there we go. So now this solution works too there. So now we took what was probably, I don't know, about 8 lines of code, and we basically reduced it down to 3 from there. So we took our code and made it a lot more efficient, and we're looking good from here. So if you guys learned something, be sure to comment down below and subscribe and give me a thumbs up. And other than that, I hope you guys had some fun, and I will see you guys in the next video.